Call this regular school committee meeting to order Monday, September 13th, 2021. Please join us, Ms. Cragen, if you would lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Going forward into the agenda, school committee members and student report, school committee chair report. I have nothing to report at this time. Resource committee.
Resource Committee, we met on September 2nd, and I do not have the notes here tonight yet. And I will have them for next meeting. And school building needs, the same thing, other than it was an excellent report by our Director of School Buildings. And one thing that's on the agenda tonight is a schools and sports groundkeeper and utility person that is on the agenda, which we voted for.
Good. Any questions? Comments, concerns? Seeing none. Policy committee, Mr. Horgan.
Nothing new to report at this time.
Nothing to report. Any questions from the committee or people present? Seeing none. Student Support Committee, Ms. LaBelle Pierce.
Thank you. We met last Thursday. We had two agenda items. One, support systems in the district for LGBTQ students. I think many of us see the goals of education and in the term of the research about, windows and mirrors and the need for students to be able to learn empathy by recognizing the experience of others, and that's the windows into the world, and the mirror, the idea that you see reflected in the clubs or the materials that you see in a school, people that are like you. And that was really the nature of the conversation. We got some good information from Jonathan Thompson about what is kind of going on in the schools, and that conversation will continue. We also had an agenda item about vaccinations and policies to deal with COVID in the schools. Mostly our discussions were how to encourage maximum protection for students and staff, and that is also an ongoing conversation. I know the superintendent will have some updates tonight about where we're at in the city regarding vaccination status and the attempts to encourage vaccination. We also talked a great deal about pool testing, and I know that the schools are going to begin their pool testing this week, right? September 13th.
We were hoping to start this week, but it'll be next week. The supplies just came in on Friday.
Okay. So I imagine we're going to hear more of an update about that as well. But basically that these are policies that we want to encourage because, having that information is really important this year. So that's the extent of our meeting.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. LaBelle Pierce. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Executive Committee, I have nothing to report. And student representatives?
Okay. Just me today, but it's been a busy, a lot on the agenda for this week coming up at the high school. I'd like to start off and say that we had a big win last Thursday, 27-12 against Leominster, which I think anyone would be proud of. The football team. Then field hockey had a big win against Hudson with the 4-1 win. So Fitchburg athletics is really kicking up this fall. They have a really good packed schedule, so make sure to really participate, come out to the football games and make the best of it. We're hoping for a lot of wins.
Yep.
This Wednesday is a half day at the high school and across. We have an 11:30 dismissal for students to remember. On the 16th is a very packed day, is the FHS. We have an open house for students and parents, 6 to 7:30 at night. Make sure to come. You can meet all the parents, all students, and parents can meet the teachers. Also a vaccine clinic on the 16th, as I know flyers should be going out within the next few days to get parental consent. We really hope for that, and most people will get vaccinated. We had class meetings last week, which is a good way of getting everyone back in order, all the class at the high school, back into a swing of things. It's been, and then truthfully, let me see what else. No, it's been, so quite a few things to look at this week. I think truthfully, one of the things as a student is with vaccines is really trying to encourage other students to get vaccinated. I know I'm personally vaccinated, but I feel like it is, I'm not saying forcing you to, I'm not trying to do that, but I feel like it's really something to encourage to do. I think there's a lot of great resources at the school nurse, any teacher will be able to direct you which way, if you have any questions. I think, I don't know exact percent, someone may else know, but I know we are off from that 80% where by August 1st we'd be able to go optional maskless. And I think that also being vaccinated will help us in a lot of school activity, like sports. There will be a lot less breakthrough cases, all important. I think of a lot more leniency with things such as doing events outside of school, like homecoming and that type of stuff. So truthfully, if you really can, we urge you to look into it. Just give it a chance. You don't have to get vaccinated, but to give it a chance, look at it. We'd greatly appreciate it. So thank you. That's all I have to report.
Any questions?
Hi.
Yes, Mr. Walsh.
What's the time of the clinic, the Vax clinic on the 16th?
It's in school, correct? 9 to 3.
At the high school? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
All right, mine is not a question, and I don't mean to be flip, but I loved hearing the football victory, but I loved getting the email that the field hockey team won. As a former field hockey player, in a 3-year run of no wins, and I was the goalie, so I'm going to I own that. It was exciting, so it's great to see I know in my own household to see my child be able to go out and do something normal, go to a football game, and even though it was pouring, it was just so important. I mean, the kids have lost a lot in this time. I don't know if anybody saw the New York Times magazine this weekend about what have the kids lost, and so much. We owe it to our children to make sure that they get some of these experiences that are so important in growing up. So go field hockey.
Did you mention, Mr. Mayor, that the JVs won as well on Saturday? They did.
They did win.
They did win, right?
Here comes the dynasty.
Yeah. 12-6, is that what it was? That's right, yeah. Good. It's double
Yeah,
benefit. Yeah.
Starting off good.
The only way it would have been better if we beat them on their field like we did on Friday night, you know what I mean? Or Thursday, whatever. Yeah, thank you. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes from the previous school committee meeting of August 25th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 25th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, it is unanimous. Executive session, not at this time. We will be going into executive session at the close of the agenda. Communications.
Oh, I have one.
Yes.
And Jean has one as well. So mine is to let everyone know that Stratton Players has chosen our 21-22 season, our 97th consecutive season in Fitchburg. This is one of the longest-running community theaters in New England.
Wow.
We are doing Letters from the Front, Fitchburg and the War of the Rebellion. In October 1861, local Fitchburg soldiers head south to Balls Bluff, Virginia. After a joyous send-off, citizens wait anxiously for news of the fate of the Fitchburg Fusiliers and Washington Guards. So this is an original music and theater presentation based on letters and historical sources. And I just realized that all the soldiers that we're writing about actually went to Fitchburg schools. So there's a huge connection between the veterans and, this really tragic battle. It was the first major defeat of the North. And performances are Saturday and Sunday, October 2nd and 3rd. There are 4. They are at Forest Hill Cemetery, our absolutely gorgeous cemetery with the Mount Elam Road exit. entrance. And we are supported by Fitchburg Historical Society, Fitchburg Cultural Council, Fitchburg Cemetery Commission, 15th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, and Mayor Stephen DiNatale. So we are so excited to get live theater happening in Fitchburg again.
Great. Thank you. Yes?
I wanted to share communication, and I know, Mr. Roach, if you wanted to speak about this, I know you've emailed about it to the FHS community, but if people haven't heard about Jake Tebow and the accident that
Yes.
he had playing hockey over Labor Day weekend, I just want to use this opportunity to tell people that they can support Jake through a GoFundMe. He's got an incredible road ahead of him for rehabilitation. He's a neighbor of ours, and his mom and dad and brother are just, in that fight as well. They're in our hearts, they're in our prayers, but there is a way that you can support it. And so if you go to GoFundMe and you look up Jake Tebow, Time to Grind, you'll see information there. But Jake's just, I think, what do you say, Mr. Roach? Once a Red Raider, always a Red Raider, right?
Yeah, I think he's a phenomenal student for us before he moved to the Milton Academy. And I know that I'm really grateful to the Minnesota High School too. Last week at the game, they were really happy to also help. Just passing the can around on both sides. And we collected $400, which is not much, but I know that the GoFundMe page is there, and the students at the high school are planning something at Parker Field. I think in a couple of weeks, it will be another thing. I'll certainly let everybody know about that too.
I mean, Jake's work ethic and his spirit are indomitable. I can tell you from my window at my house, all summer you can see him like skating up and down the road and training, and he's determined, and hopefully, I know he must see the support the community has for him. So thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you for mentioning that, Ms. LaBelle Pierce. Okay. Public comment. Anyone? No? No, okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get started, I'd just like to repeat what Jack said about the vaccination clinic, and really, vaccinations are the best line of defense against COVID. We want all our students and our families to be safe and healthy as the Delta variant is out there. And we are having a clinic Thursday from 9 to 3. We have posted Q&A questions that are commonly asked about people who have concerns about the vaccine on our social media in English and in Spanish. For those who haven't yet decided to get the vaccination, hopefully some of those questions can be answered online, and you can feel comfortable coming into our nurses and asking them questions as well. So, my public service announcement out of the way. Tonight, before us, I'd like to just have Jeremy Roach, the principal of Fitchburg High School, go first to give an update on the NEASC accreditation debrief that was completed, I guess, finalized over the summer. Yeah. And I think either Craig or Jeremy has the slide deck ready to go. No, do you not?
Okay. I have it on my computer if it's easy to...
John? No? Okay.
Are you sharing them with me?
It is available.
Okay.
And I'll wait a second here to see if we get it.
Here it is, I have it.
Do you want me to share it real quick, John, or?
Share with Mr.
Okay.
Shalafo, and he's going to
Yeah.
attempt to present it.
Yeah, before I start too, just quickly for anyone watching, I would also add about the parent open house on Thursday. We are going to do it both in person and virtually, so we want to try to make it as accessible as possible to families. We will have babysitting and some food and different things too, so if you do come out, that will be set up, but please do, and we hope to see as many parents as possible, either through a screen or in the hallways in the classrooms at Fitchburg High at 6 p.m. on Thursday the 16th. As the presentation is coming up, I can give a quick start to a little bit about there it is. What Fitchburg High School had last year, the 2020-2021 school year, which was the decennial NEASC visit, which, as it sounds, happens once every 10 years. And to add it into the pandemic year was really exciting. It added a lot of, interesting challenge to what was already a pretty interesting and challenging year. But what I would say is NEASC, New England Association of Schools and Colleges, has really adapted its model. And we found over this past decennial visit, which actually now takes place in 2 parts, to be very productive, to be super formative and helpful, and really was not as onerous and difficult as the previous process had been, that at least I had experienced several times in my career. So I'm not sure if we can go to slide 1 if that's possible, John. Well, we have a great picture there of that. There we go. So yeah, we had, I would describe as an exceptional visit that was very validating to what the work of the faculty and staff at Fitchburg High School is about. And I put an image of a starfish on there that I'll explain in a couple of minutes. But again, it was truly positive in many ways. So next slide, if you will, is an explanation of the process. So New England Association of Schools and Colleges is just that. It's the accreditation agency that oversees the accreditation for high schools and colleges throughout New England. To be accredited, you have to be a member, and you have to be a part of, you have to agree to the process, which is, there we go, which is conducting a very intensive self-study. So it's a self-analysis, and essentially what schools do is they take a period of time and they review its progress to 5 standards. And those standards are pretty straightforward. They're focused on student learning, they're focused on support systems that you have in the school, resources and things like that. In addition, now what's relatively new is identifying your own priority areas for growth, which we did in a process a little bit before the decennial visit 2 years prior in what's called a collaborative conference. So we had a number of people come out to Fitchburg High for 2 days, and we conducted the collaborative conference, identified our priority areas for growth, and then continued with the decennial visit in April of 2021. So again, there's that 10-year visit, and it's really based on those standards reports, the priority areas for growth reports, the site visit that actually takes place between a chair, a co-chair, and about 4 volunteers for a school our size. Sometimes it's 2 or 3, but for us it was 4. They do interviews with teachers. I think some of you are interviewed and participated in that, school committee members, students certainly, parents, and then potentially community stakeholders like the Mount or Fitchburg State or others that help and work with us. And again, there's that collaborative conference part, which is great. So I've given a quick overview on our priority areas for growth in the next few slides. We had 4, and we identified those with our team in 2 years prior. So the first one is about structures that will help us to improve our curriculum instruction and assessment. And then some of the steps that are listed there, are what we're planning to do in terms of how we will improve. So we have an instructional leadership team of teacher leaders. I think we're still kind of working through that. So, sorry about that. No, that's fine. We have a process where teachers can meet and collaborate about curriculum and instruction called professional learning circles. This allows for a lot of deep collaboration with respect to our data cycles, with respect to some of the formative checks for understanding that we do, a number of other things. We've been working with focus schools on the development of a school-wide instructional focus. So that's been going on for about a year or so now, a little bit more. Again, the data team is in place to try to do these things. And ultimately, we are working on professional development all the time with our staff. So we provided a lot of evidence around all of these areas. And then you can move over to priority area 2, Mr. Thompson. So again, I think when we identified that priority area, the NEAS team certainly agreed with us, and we've been working on that intensively for the past number of years. So the curriculum model is one that would be consistent across all the department areas. So that's something that we also identified and have been working on, and those 4 items there are the ways that we're doing that. So administrative team now focuses on 2 to 3 departments each, like I work with math and science specifically. I work with a couple of others, but I do a lot more with them, and that way we can provide more intensive support. We've adopted some unbelievable curriculum from Facing History in Ourselves to Common Lit to Open SciEd this year with science and a few other areas. We do have a curriculum model, and all the documents are uploaded into a certain area, and they're constantly being revised. They're not done. They're ongoing documents. We'll be working on them on Wednesday, in fact, on the early release day. And then professional development is really, I think, something that we've spent a lot of time on, not only bringing in experts like Facing History in Ourselves, but tapping into the experts within the school, and that's our teachers. You know, so a lot of the teachers provide professional development to their peers in what we refer to as a ed camp model. So a teacher can, for example, give a session on questioning techniques, and teachers sign up, and then another one might do one on how to use a technology tool like CUDA-Works or something in math. Again, teachers would sign up. So we usually set up our early release days and our full-day PDs with some segment of it that really allows for teachers to take that kind of step in their own leadership and share something that they're doing really well with their others, and we've had great success with it. So the third growth area is instructional consistency. Again, I mentioned Focus Schools, and Carrie Purcell is the person we work with. I'm not sure if she's met with school committee. Okay, so you've met her. She's been a phenomenal asset to us and has worked a lot with us in addition to what we had already been doing, especially to target kind of specific strategies. So that's walkthroughs with tools that capture evidence that we can share in a way that makes sense, and also then target more professional development to the teams. We did a lot around that development of the school-wide instructional focus, which is actually listed at the very bottom of the slide. We've always had present, prepared, and positive as sign of sort of the characteristics that we talk about. You know, Jack talked about the school, the meetings with the student classes the other day, and we always start with that. But what we added to it recently is the academic part around, you know, we firmly believe that a student, if they're present, prepared, and positive in how they act and the way that they approach different things, they're going to be successful in life. And if they can communicate effectively and think critically, that's just the perfect synthesis of what we hope for every student at Fitchburg High School. So that is our school-wide focus. And now we're really measuring growth for every student through evidence-based instructional practices. The first one is citing evidence, in fact, being able to cite evidence so that you can explain your thinking, compare different sources, synthesize ideas into something that makes a lot of sense. And that's a skill that's in demand. I mean, just, you know, the internet, right there alone. Can you take information that's always coming at you, make sense of it, and make sense that makes sense for what you need from it as a productive citizen or a student? So we do walkthroughs. We try to do those daily, certainly weekly. We capture the evidence of those. We share it with staff. And we're really looking at data cycles for all subject areas, which we haven't always been great at. We've done it in English and math a lot of times, but now our first steps actually, again, we'll be working on this on Wednesday, is the data cycle for every department to analyze how are we progressing in that task and that skill of how are students citing evidence in your class, and what measurements do you have? Little assessments, a little bit longer ones, but something. So we're excited about it. You can move to the next one, John. And then ultimately, having a very clear vision of the graduate. We gave ourselves a very hard grade on this because we've been working with the Barr Foundation on developing on that portrait of a graduate process, which I think we've heard about. And so NEAS, New England Association of Schools and Colleges, calls it the vision of the graduate. It's much the same thing. And again, I think our school-wide instructional focus captures a lot of that, but we also knew that we wanted to specify it a little bit more specifically. So, and one of the things that we said to them was, we need to communicate this more, we need to get more input, we need to go into our school improvement councils, our student advisory councils, to get more feedback from everybody before we truly say we have the Fitchburg High School vision of the graduate fully clarified, everyone understands it, we know how we're going to measure it, we know the different ways that we are going to show exciting growth around that, but also areas that we need to improve. So I think this year, by the end of the year, we'll have finalized that for sure, because we're very close. They kept saying to us in the meetings, you sure you want to say that you don't have it yet? Because it seems like you do to us. Everybody knows present, prepared, positive. They know, no, we're not there. And they said, that's fine then. You continue to work on that. So you see some of the areas there. I think the innovation career pathways in manufacturing, we're going to try to expand that to environmental careers and pathways this year. We're writing a grant for that. And then obviously we have so much going on with dual enrollment courses in our early college pathways that we have. So those are our growth areas. They did not disagree, and we've been continuing to work on that. But I think what was most impressive and most astounding to us is when they conducted the debrief. The process is that the chair of the committee, his name was Paul Mangelinks, and the co-chair, Dr. Ruth Gilbert Whitner, they present to the staff. And this was a Friday in April. At the end of the visit, it's approximately 4 days. And usually, when I've experienced these before, NEASC they're tough, and they give you some pointed criticisms, which are valid, but actually we received 26 commendations and only 4 recommendations. So that was great, but the most impressive thing was the chair stopped what he was doing when he was presenting to the staff, and he just shared this story, which is the starfish story. And I always say to the staff and the students that we're the best in Massachusetts, and he said, when I have been here in your collaborative conference, when I've just experienced this visit, your staff, everyone here just reminds me of this, that what you're doing is so powerful, and you never give up, you have 100% commitment, you believe in all of your kids, and it just reminds me so much. And he talked about how he had been given a starfish pin when he was a principal at another school, and he said, I want to leave this for the Fitchburg High School faculty because you guys truly deserve it. So it was overwhelming, honestly. And again, I had been associated with NEASC for even the years when schools were thinking about removing themselves from the accreditation process because it was so difficult. But it was quite different this time. So last slide is just our next steps. We are fully accredited without any conditions for follow-up other than what we have identified for ourselves, which I've shared. We did receive 26 commendations in our standard reviews, and just the 4 recommendations are our priority areas for growth. They gave us nothing else, which was great. They felt like we were truly honest, that we were not withholding any information. From what they saw, it validated exactly what we were saying, and so they said, just keep working on your priority areas. You've identified them. They make sense. They're what you need, and you guys are 100% honest with us. So it's exactly what it is there. These are things that we are doing now that we will have finalized in some cases at the end of this year with the vision of the graduate statement. And really, we're doing a lot with that instructional curriculum and assessment alignment in ways that we have never been able to. So it's really exciting. And again, the report is now public. So we can all share in this positivity around the idea that, Fitchburg High School is fully accredited with 0 conditions or follow-up necessities other than the general requirements of continuing to work on our priority areas. So happy to report that. And again, it's just a great validation of an amazing staff and faculty who work really hard for our kids every day. So, thank you. The team effort for sure. And again, they were super impressed with Fitchburg Public Schools and Fitchburg High School. And again, I know we always say that, And we're always excited about the champions that we are, about our school system, about people like Jack and so many others, right through to kindergarten. Sometimes we get down about, you know, negative messages, and to hear outsiders from across New England come in and say those things was, I think, something that Fitchburg can be very proud of. So I'm glad to take any questions that the committee has.
You want to go first, Sally?
I just, the Innovation Career Pathways is one that I have a special place in my heart for, and so grateful to hear about this. And could you share a little bit for our viewers who may not be familiar with this particular, you know, strand of Fitchburg High School and the mission?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Sally. So several years ago, we pursued it's called an Innovation Career Pathway, and it's somewhat of a vocational pathway that a school like ours, which is coded as a traditional high school by the Department of Education, can do, even when there's a vocational school within your own city or that you're a part of. So they've identified 5 areas that are high-need employment sectors across the state. Manufacturing is one of them: healthcare, manufacturing, environmental, life sciences. So we knew from research with the Chamber of Commerce and Mass Hire and some other agencies in the city and the region that manufacturing really, you know, is a great growth sector here in Fitchburg. There are many jobs available. There are lots of different companies that are not huge, but they employ 50 to 100 people, and they're looking for great people to come in, present, positive, prepared type of people. So we applied for it and we got it. So it was a really extremely rigorous process to apply. It took us about a year, but the department, we had multiple interviews with the Department of Education representatives. We had to go down to Malden. In fact, Mr. Jokel and I went down with Tanya Jarrett, who's helped a lot with this, and we were approved. So then our next steps were, well, we need some equipment. So we applied for multiple capital skills grants, they're called. We've received $325,000 in grants so far. So we have 3 beautiful new classroom setups with routers, with injection mold machines, with laser cutters, with all kinds of equipment that our steering committee, which is Greif, Micron, New England Wire, Rochelot, Tool and Die, Boutwell Owens, we've all agreed to help our program. And so now, this is really our first year of implementation, because last year was, but it was hard to use the machines in the virtual, you know, type of classroom. So we have, I think, 140 kids enrolled. Wow. So there's a real appetite for it as well, and we're excited about it. So we've been given a planning grant for an environmental pathway. So certainly that's environmental science, but it's also really environmental pathways that are vocational. Solar power, wind power. We have a great agreement already with the city's wastewater department. They've been huge supporters, right out of the gate. Representative Kuchmarek and Senator Cronin have been big supporters of our application already as well. They're trying to find funds for us. So we're pretty confident. The application is due October 27th. We're working on that now. Like I said, they're pretty intensive applications, but again, we want to continue to provide these kind of opportunities for our kids because they deserve it, first of all, but the city needs it. The region needs people who are skilled. So our manufacturing program, a student who graduates will have 5, 6, 7 different credentials in their resume. They'll have NC3 credential. They'll have certainly OSHA 10. They'll have all these very specific credentials that the manufacturers have told us, those are what we need. This is what we need for candidates. We had 3 students last year who were working with the partners during their senior year, and I told some of the classes the other day, they're making $20 an hour. If they worked extra hours, it's $30 an hour. I mean, these are real career-based type positions, not just simply jobs. And they ultimately make, I think, the city a better place because hopefully people then stay in town, they buy a house, they really set down roots, and they continue to grow that industry. So that's what we're hoping to do, and we'll just keep adding to them as we can. Long answer, I'm sorry, but I'm excited about what it does.
Just add on to your long answer, Jeremy, which was really comprehensive, was we just had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, Roy Nascimento, last week, about how we can partner more with the Chamber, and they're going to have some conversations at their level, but also creating a bridge-type program where speakers from the Chamber come in,
Right.
talk to our students about the possibilities in North Central Mass. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things happening, whether it be just manufacturing or other career pathways, as Jerry mentioned, the environmental program, which we've connected with Jeff Morosky. And,
Yeah, he's been a
Senator
phenomenal
Cronin and
resource so
Representative
far.
Kushmerek have been
Yeah.
just unbelievable
Yes.
in terms of their support and trying to get this program up and running. So.
Jeremy, what you mentioned about, keeping people in the area. Our
Yes.
census figures just came out for 2020. We've shown over 1,000 people growth in the city of Fitchburg.
That's
It's a
exciting.
place people are choosing to raise their
Yes.
families, live, work, and play. That's what we promote. So this is just one more example of it. That whole STEM and STEAM thing, this is what it is.
It's right
I
in,
mean,
it's
great.
exactly in that.
That coordination with the business folks and the students,
Yeah,
critical. So, great.
thank you.
Mr. Roach, I mean, just what you and the staff have done there to prepare kids for life after high school, but at the same time, giving them this wonderful experience during high school is just incredible. And the pride that you have, it's infectious. I think everybody really feels that pride in the high school.
Appreciate it.
I'm curious, because it is a 10-year process, and there are 5-year, benchmarks where you have to
Sure.
check in. What's the plan to measure your success in the curriculum instruction goal?
So we, to your point, we will be reporting, with our chair, as it were, about our progress periodically. We have no specific deadline like you have to do. They used to call them special progress reports. There's a glaring problem here, and you have to do a special progress report. What we will do, though, is we will stay committed. I think one of the best things about this process was they made it clear to us, because they had a chance to see our school improvement plan, that we had a comprehensive approach already to trying to improve the school. And so I remember back when we were just starting the reporting, maybe a year before the collaborative conference, so that would have been like 2017, 18. The feedback we got at the time was, stay focused on what you're already doing. You guys are kind of already there. We'll give you feedback, we'll give you guidance. So I guess my response to that, Gene, is really super specific as it pertains to instruction. We'll have all kinds of walkthrough data and professional development planning that will demonstrate how we're trying to support a specific initiative, like everybody being able to be effective at helping students cite evidence, to explain their thinking, cite evidence in writing, cite evidence in presentation, and whatever else. We'll have lots of information and data there. We'll have created the data cycles that specifically show how are our kids progressing and growing in these various areas that we know are critically important against the literacy standards especially, but certainly math. We'll have that vision of the graduate that is understood by everyone in the community. That's our goal for sure. So I think with everything that we have here, the report that I got, the finalized report that I believe you have, and if not, I can email it to the whole team, essentially just outlines, these are your follow-up areas, continue to work on them. When you do have the check-in, and I believe it is 5 years, but it might be a little bit more like 3. We have to report out on the growth we've made, the steps we've taken, and evidence to support that with those 4 priority areas for growth. So I think they're big projects that we're working on, but they're pretty much everything that we're doing all the time. So it should be very easy, and we're going to do updating on it because every year internally, and tracking our progress around that, so that when it comes to that time of now you have to do the report, it'll be basically done. And again, the only other thing I would say is they now they now acknowledge the school improvement plan process, whereas they never really did before. Now you have to submit your school improvement plan with your NEASC report, and that for us was great because we put a lot of energy into that, and it really is our sort of 1 and 2 year planning type of work. So I think between those two things, we'll have a lot of evidence and information to share, about how we're progressing around these target areas. And I don't know if I answered your question effectively, but
Yeah, no, you did. Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yep,
Thanks,
you got it. Have a great night.
too.
Craig, you want to bring up the parental survey, and then I'll go from that and strategic plan, and then we wrap up with what we're doing.
Survey first.
Yeah. Incredible, yeah. Just,
All right, next up on deck was when students returned back to school, we sent out a parental survey to the community covering a lot of different topics. Tonight, I'd like to share those results with you all, and also then go into the draft strategic plan, which I sent you a PDF of, but for the purpose of informing the community, I've just tried to condense down to a handful of slides here. So I apologize. I had some connectivity issues with my laptop here, so we're putting Craig on the spot here.
It's hard when you have everyone watching.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Craig. So we surveyed our parents about a week or so before returning to school, and we had 1,152 responses. And as you can see, the distribution of responses was pretty consistent across our schools. Fitchburg High, being our largest school, did have the most responses with over 300. Again, here's just some basic data on the responses in terms of how many children were in our schools. About half had one child, a little over a third had 2 children, and 10% had, or 11% had 3, and a small percentage had 4 or more than 4. One of the things that we wanted to gauge was parents or families' interest in the vaccine. So it was an open response question where we asked for either a cell phone number or an email address. So we had 112 responses indicate an interest. So that's roughly a little under 10% of the total number who completed the survey. The ones who provided a cell phone number, we actually called each one of them, and at an open house event, at Longstraw Welcome Back event, we had about 5 people come in and receive the vaccination. And I sent out an email to the individuals who had just provided an email contact. So one of the things that we want to ask, and this is in line with ESSER funding, was just to find out, what we should be focusing on as students return to full in-person learning. So as you can see by the results here, and again here there were a little over 1,100 responses to this question. Number 1 was COVID safety protocols, procedures. Mr. Shalfu will be just providing an update of what our plans and protocols and procedures are for this year after I'm done this presentation, and the update on the strategic plan. You can go back, Craig. And second was, focusing on the core academics. Again, we believe that all our students can grow and achieve, and we're going to be putting that in place this year. As Jeremy mentioned, we've been working with Focus Schools. Carrie Purcell, who made her original presentation to us for her proposal. We're in year 2 working with her not only at Fitchburg High, but also McKay and at the district level. And I think third came in the assessing students' academics. So we're constantly, assessing not only where students are beginning of the year, but also during the year. And it's more than just the standardized state testing. It's really trying to target individual growth and learning plans for our students. So those were the top three. And what's the fourth one there? And engaging, or actually more extracurricular offerings. And actually our 21st Century programming is full at all our schools for this fall. And actually we've had to stop accepting signups. Yeah,
Yep.
so.
Mr. Superintendent, how many how many kids are in 21st Century right now?
So right now, the
70.
capacity of that is like 60 to 75 per school.
Great, thank you.
So. Okay, then additional feedback on the funding over the next 3 years, where they would like to see. Number one was building improvements, and I think as we've updated the school committee and the community, we have been making a number of improvements to our facilities. That effort continues this year. We're in the process of receiving bids and quotes on a variety of subsystem and air filtration and ventilation improvements. We just completed 2 MSBA projects. We have a statement of interest that we'll be applying for Longstro. Actually, that's in a review status, I guess, at the MSBA.
Yep.
And the City Council did approve the Crocker Elementary core project during the summer. So we have our hands full with facilities projects currently and in the future. So that's where a good chunk of our of the ESSER 3 funding, Craig, will be going.
ESSER 3, yep.
Yeah, there are 3 blocks of ESSER. So that's where a lot of that will be going. I guess the second one is really more technology. We have been procuring additional Chromebooks across the district. It's part of our network upgrade. We will be receiving additional what's called E-rate funding from the federal government. That's about 85% reimbursement, right,
Yes.
Mr. Shalfo? And I can't remember, what was the dollar amount on that? The gross, was that like 800,000 or 900,000?
Yeah, just under 900,000, I believe.
So that's going to be upgraded, and clearly, everybody's using the internet more, whether it be work from home or our students just downloading more applications, using more video bandwidth. So our networks across all our schools will be ready for the demand and the learning needs of our students. So those were the top 2 that we have here. If anybody can see the other items here, if anybody has any questions, we'll keep going. And going into this next phase of the questions, one of the things that districts are always trying to do is to communicate better with parents and the community. So part of that was, what's the mode? What's the best way to communicate with parents? And a little surprised to see that email still ranked as the dominant number 1 method for us to communicate, at least with the 1,142 people who responded to this question. I think what's interesting is to see that text messages was not too far behind. Texts have that immediacy of the message, whatever the event is, whether it be vaccinations or an open house or quick contact. That way of communicating seems to be more effective engaging the parents. Clearly then phone voice is third, and then the remaining modes, a much smaller percent, only 10% are going to our website, which is really almost like a catalog at this point. Printed paper and backpacks, small percentage, below 20%. Social media, that was a little surprising where it's just below 20%. Meeting by video, that's probably one that we wouldn't have had maybe 3 years ago, but about 6% of parents, respondents, preferred that option, and during the pandemic, that really was a key way for us to stay in touch. And lastly, and no offense to our video hosts, FATV came in at under 2% in terms of trying to reach the broader community here. So we're taking this into account, and again, looking at the modes that we are trying to communicate with email and text, and whether it be ConnectEd and Remind app and others. We've been using, over the last year, we've been using a product called LionsBridge that's been provided to us by the Department of Ed. And looking at some of that data, we've seen a couple other languages, in addition to English and Spanish, be requested for translation. What's different is in this survey, the responses were a little bit different. This was very heavily responded to. Just English is the preferred language at 99.3, Spanish at almost just 5.5%. Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Laotian, Hmong, all under 1%.
Bob, could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I remember taking this survey, but I don't remember. Was there a question that got at the demographics of the people who answered?
No, there was not.
So, I mean, it suggests there that you don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that worries me, like you
Yeah.
think, how are we reaching all different kinds of people in our system?
Well, that's a great observation, because if we've learned one thing during the pandemic and actually trying to communicate with the community in the spring about vaccinations or vaccination events, there are a lot of people who don't utilize email.
Yeah.
So, the responses are only as good as, I guess, maybe the platform who are using, and the people on that platform who
Right.
have access to it.
Right.
So, these survey results help us guide us in our actions. Clearly, we know that it doesn't capture a complete picture of our parents and our families. And then the next question was, just to continue along the theme of communication, the preference on how district communicates. And really, this was interesting. 84% of the people who responded, so 948 people of the 1,127 people, like completing surveys to express their experience, their feedback, into how we're doing. So that was great information. Again, just going down the list of other forums, public meeting, and now, by video conference, just under 14%. Then we have public meeting in person, which we're gradually getting back to, about 16%. Phone call, still works for a quarter of our respondents. And meetings, discussion at the school, also up there as well in terms of preference. Home visits, community walks, small percentage. Community events, just under 15% like the community events, so whether it be the welcome back events, the parent events, the open houses. And again, and a quarter of our respondents prefer the individual meetings with staff. So then lastly, kind of this is the home stretch of the parental survey portion, was, as we return from the pandemic, and whether it's Fitchburg or any school in Massachusetts or across the country, we want to be viewed as a institution of credibility and trust. And so we wanted to find out, number one, do parents perceive our communications to be accurate? So I guess from looking at a positive response, so that it would be the blue, the purple, and the green, we have about 45 78 and 7 would be about 85% of our parents review, consider the communication to be accurate. 21% are neutral, and a small portion disagree. So that's comforting to know, but I think it also tells us that we have some work to do to I guess maybe reduce the neutral response zone. We did have some responses on a couple schools where it was inconsistent, where some response would say the school is great, and then others would say there's room for improvement. So again, not everyone's experience is the same. Vast majority at 85% view the communication at least to be accurate, and that's something that we can improve on going forward.
Isn't the 7% on the last slide strongly disagree, the blue?
Yeah, the purple.
Yes, you said blue.
Oh, excuse me.
Switch
Yeah, excuse me, yeah.
So it's the
It's purple, green, and yeah, sorry about that. Good catch, Jack.
Bob, you have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Superintendent Jokel, so all the tables that we've seen so far is based on the entire survey, but these same tables could be generated for each school, is that correct?
We could generate them, I think, for each school, yeah, because the respondents selected which school they were at, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is just a overall district report out here. And then the last question, which actually had, and I don't know if this was just survey fatigue at this point, but it had the lowest responses at 962, and I think the first one was around 1152. But in terms of, are we transparent and trustworthy? 80% were solid, yes. Then these are numbers. So 768 of that 962 said yes, absolutely, usually, mostly, trustworthy, sometimes. So I guess those would all be positive. 25 were no, 12 not all the time. And then there were some unknowns, some unsures, some undecided, for the most part. Again, so there's, some feedback here that's helpful for us as we, re-enter, full in-person learning, and again, look to reestablish relationships with our students and our families. And I think, is that the wrap there? Yep, okay. So that's, I guess, I'll say part one of what I want to report out tonight, and then Craig will be queuing up the draft strategic plan. So as Jeremy said, and in a way, this first survey of the year helps us as we look at getting feedback from the community. So whether it's on the ESSER grant funding or what the needs are of our students, based on our parents' input. We want to give parents, students, and staff a voice. So the draft strategic plan that was shared with you before the meeting was put together, really over the last year, but during our summer leadership retreat. Carrie Purcell Focus School, who we've been working with, facilitated the retreat, and the first 2 days spent a good portion of the time really working with us, narrowing down some of the things that we were talking about, so we would be, as the name of her firm says, a little bit more focused here. So, do you have the presentation, or we can just go from? Actually, Craig, if you can just the PDF. What's that? Is that what you have, just the PDF up? Yep. Okay, so if you can just scroll down to keep going to the theory of action, go through all the, right here, just right there. Just go back right up here. So,
What page number, Bob?
that page is
6.
page 6. So, Page 6 is really our starting point and, is based on where we are as a district, based on the most recent available internal data. As you all know, the MCAS results, actually, as of right now, they have not been released to the public yet. That should be happening, I believe, the end of this week or next week. And those results will only be used by the Commonwealth for diagnostic purposes. There will not be any accountability assigned to those figures. So we've been looking at internal data and also historical MCAS data from 2 years ago when that was our last accountability review. So one of the things that we look at constantly and we've been working on before the pandemic and even now is our attendance rates. Up until the pandemic hit, actually, we had made substantial progress at, I think, all of our schools, and that progress was paused back in March of 2019. And we're looking to reestablish that momentum as we move forward into this year and in future years. Again, historically, 4 of our schools were considered by the state to be in the lowest 10th percentile. Again, it's not uncommon for urban districts to be in that neighborhood range. Based on last year's iReady data for ELA and math, we look at, students that are on or above grade levels and, are they one grade level behind or more. So on the math front, a third of our students were on or above grade level, and our English language arts, the percentage of on or above was 42%. And this is K through 8, John, correct? Correct. So that's K through 8 data. One of the things that we're going to be doing more this year versus last year is actually the principals and the central office team with our new directors. We're going to be in the schools a lot more. The goal that Carrie Purcell is holding our feet to the fire is 50% of our time will be in the schools. It's ambitious, but it's doable. So we feel that partnering with our teaching staff and school leadership teams and showing the level of commitment, and also hearing firsthand what the needs are of the students, and if there's any needs that can be met with whether it be district or ESSER funding to help support our students. One of the things that areas that we've been working on as part of our diversity, belonging, inclusion, equity, but also really making sure our students are ready to learn when they're in our schools is a feeling of welcoming and belonging. That's something that is very high on our priority list this year. Coincidentally, this morning we held a student focus forum up at Fitchburg High School. Jeremy arranged for a couple classes that otherwise would have been in the cafeteria to be just a kind of a consumer focus group. And I'll talk about the 4 questions that we asked them later here. But we want to hear the voice of students, faculty, and the community as we look to finalize this sometime next month. And lastly, one of our goals, as we shared during the budget season and actually in April when we presented an update on our diversity recruitment plan, is to try to hire a workforce that's more reflective of our students that we educate. One of the challenges we have in Fitchburg and across the state and across the country, and almost anybody who is an employer, is finding talent. We still have several openings across the district, whether they be paraprofessionals, teachers, custodians, food service. There's plenty of opportunities in Fitchburg Public Schools. It's a matter of now finding, qualified applicants to help meet those needs, and in some cases, applicants. So, one of the things that we've worked on over the last year has been our theory of action. The mission and the vision of the school department hasn't changed, but our theory of action is something that we spent quite a bit of time from a central office perspective working with Carrie Purcell through this process. And I'll just read it for everybody who may not be able to see it on TV. If all staff, families, and community partners collaboratively identify and remove barriers to personal growth and achievement, then every student will be ready to learn and access high-quality core instruction and social-emotional supports. This really conveys a couple of key themes here. One, it's a team approach. It's our staff, our families, and our community partners that have to work together. And also, the goal for us is to remove barriers for our students and families to make learning accessible and also opportunities, as Jeremy was talking about, you know, the pathways that he's been putting together to provide our students a brighter future once they leave our doors. One of the, I guess, best sessions of our retreat back in August, when we had about 50 school leaders, principals, assistant principals, directors, central office folks gathered together at Fitchburg High School Library, with putting together a set of values. A lot of organizations, companies, colleges, universities, the U.S. military, everybody has a core set of values that they fall back on. And one of the things that when we were putting together this plan was the importance of putting together values that everybody could agree on. So out of a list of 250 possible values and some round robin discussion and process of elimination, we came up with the following 5 values that you see before you here, and that's on page 9. First of all, and I would say this might be a priority in terms of number 1, is going back to our theory of action, is growth focused. We believe all our students can grow and achieve. As students come back to school this year, where they're going to be at the end of this school year is going to be in a much different place when they began, in a positive sense. So that's our number 1 goal, both academically and social emotionally. Our goal is to have that happen, not only this year, but every year. Vulnerable, I didn't have a chance to share the PowerPoint, but when we did kick off our retreat, Brene Brown, we showed a video of her giving a speech at some conference, and it was Theodore Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech, although now it could be Man or Woman in the Arena speech. And, you know, we're all in the arena, and she talked about, you know, when you're in the arena, it can be messy, it can be hard, but, you know, if you put in the work, the reward is worth it. But also to be realistic, and, you know, sometimes it's not always going to be easy, and admit when, you know, you've made mistakes, and, you know, look at yourself, be reflective, and vulnerable is the word that captured all of that. So that made it to our values listing here. Also, trustworthy. You know, just as I reported out from the survey, I think we'd like to be at 100% trust in terms of a metric. You know, we certainly have a little bit of room to improve. You know, if I add up all those other categories of kind of yeses, maybe it's a little bit higher than 80, but I think as we return from the pandemic, not only Fitchburg, but many other school districts, and actually you could read the articles from, you know, the Globe about what Boston is doing, and everyone's trying to reestablish trust with families and students. Adaptable, I think that value doesn't need any more explanation other than that I think we've demonstrated our adaptability tenfold over the last 2 years. And, you know, I think the only constant in life is change, and what this year and next year and future years will bring, we will adapt and do whatever is in the best interest of our students. And lastly is, again, going back to our theory of action, we can't do it alone. We need the students to hear their voice. We need to have relationships with parents. We need to know who the community partners are. So whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or if it's Luck, or if it's Mount Wachusett or Fitchburg State or Fitchburg Art Museum, we want to make sure that we have the right partners to not only meet the needs of our students, but also offer them extracurricular experiences that'll help them become great citizens and future residents and leaders here in Fitchburg. During the budget process, and this is on page 10 for those of you following the PDF, we established 4 commitments in that budget, and they're reiterated here in our plan. Number 1, the curriculum that's accessible and reflective of all students. Back in the spring, the school committee approved a new reading curriculum for K through 5. That's in place now, and had some feedback from one of the elementary schools when I was meeting with their leadership team, and they said it's going to be a game changer. So we're really excited about that. Second, a tiered system of academic and social emotional supports district-wide. We've hired clinical interventionists at all our schools this year, and between the Student Opportunity Act and ESSER funding, we're in a position to actually put in a system across our district, because now we have people to do that. It's not just one person or one group of people at central office. Principals are all very busy people, and we all have to work together as a team to make that happen. One of the things that I've started or continued really and put some investment into is the staff development. We've been working again with not only Focus Schools, but also Boston College's Lynch Leadership, their micro academy. We've had virtually all our either principals, assistant principals, and many central office staff attend that leadership micro academy, which really has a little bit of a focus on, I'll say, contemporary education, but also the challenges in urban districts, and also a lot of emphasis on the why and the moral imperative, which we're always trying to just make sure it comes through in our work every day. And as I mentioned, we are taking steps on the diversity recruitment plan. We did join the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity. John Harmon, who's with us tonight in the audience, and I were on a conference call or Zoom with the MPDE last week, and many HR managers across the state are, if I can use the word without sounding cliche, overwhelmed about the challenge of just trying to staff their school departments now with qualified candidates. Lastly, to make this all work, so whether it's students, staff, parents, families, we want everybody to feel welcoming and belonging in our schools. And that's something that we're working with Darnessa Monte-Jackson, who you'll be hearing from next week, and who is our speaker at one of the opening days for professional development, and actually was very well received by staff. And that covers, what would have been my presentation. I just want to give you all an introduction as to the work that we're doing. There's still a lot of goals that need more detail that will be provided. Still more meetings with schools, with parents. We want to get more parent input on this and feedback, run this by parental groups. And the goal would be to come back before you, I think probably by the second school committee in October for this, the final adoption of this plan. And then we run with it. I think just to be clear, as I've stated to staff, and as you can see, this is not a 400-page plan that's going to go in a 3-ring binder and sit in somebody's bookshelf. This is something that we hope will be a living, breathable, flexible, dynamic document, and one that's consistently focused on student needs and looking at the data to help improve student outcomes and student growth. So, with that, that's our where we are at right now on our strategic plan and getting input on it. And again, the session this morning, I think we probably had 50 to 60
say 50 to 62.
high school students, all grades, all different, I guess, variety of students.
Freshmen,
Freshmen, so-
freshmen up to seniors.
And that was really refreshing. We said, you know, we want you to be extremely honest with us. There's nothing that you can say that will make us feel bad, you know. You can quote the old Clint Eastwood movie, you know, we want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we want to be able to improve our students' experience for them, so.
And they said, who's Clint Eastwood?
I didn't say the actor, I just said the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thanks, Gene. They went what? I'm learning not to reference, you know, although he does have a new
It's
movie coming out.
sad, I know.
Yeah,
So many things we can't
Yeah.
reference anymore.
so,
Well, what did they tell you?
Oh, what did they tell us?
What are some of the gems that you
So
got?
one of the things that, excuse
You're
me,
good. You
I
can,
apologize.
it's okay.
So one of the things that kind of corresponds to what you were saying is they miss the activities and being together. That was one of the biggest things. They all said, we can't wait to have a pep rally, or we can't wait to, you know, get back together as a whole school community. They're really missing that sense of welcoming and belonging. So that was
Yeah.
one of the big pieces that they talked about. In addition to that, they talked about the community within the classrooms, all their classes that they have, and they feel that they really want teachers to spend the time in classrooms so students get to know one another, because they feel, again, that they missed out on that. And they also said that we feel more welcomed and included in classrooms where the teachers spend more time developing that sense of community, instead of just going into saying, okay, these are the expectations for class. You need to make sure you have a binder, a notebook, things like that. They really value that time and community building, so.
And I
Those
think-
are the two big takeaways.
Oh, and I think one of the things that came out too was students don't want to go back to remote learning.
No.
No.
Very wise.
Not want to go back to that model. So that was, I mean, that was great to hear, frankly, because, you know, we've always said that in-person learning is best, but to hear it from students, you know, is the best validation.
I think, you know, all of us really felt that was a really productive session today. Probably one of the best events so far of my year this year. Hearing and talking, spending at least 3 hours today with students was great.
Did they express concern about academic gaps at this point? I mean, if you think of the junior at Fitchburg High right now, they've had basically 1 year of school, right? Like, left in March,
Yep.
came back in April, like, they didn't, so that's not, it's really more the social.
No, and the other thing that they talked about too, asking what we could improve on, is they asked for more, especially the kids that were new to Fitchburg High, whether you were a freshman, sophomore, and some juniors, saying that we don't know how the school works.
Yeah.
They wish they had, like, they were buddied up with someone that could actually show them how the school works, where certain information is, how you sign up for different clubs and sporting activities. So just, they're looking for information to be more visible.
Now, is your plan to go to all the schools and do this?
Well, that's after, we're going to debrief after today.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's one of my suggestions would be if we could go to every school and possibly do this. It was a valuable activity for us, so.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shalafo is up next for, you know, our school reopening health and safety update. I guess informally, this is really, I guess, COVID full year 2. Some things have changed. Some things remain the same as they ended last year, and Mr. Shalafo will describe where we're at today and what we plan on doing tomorrow and the next 171 days.
Correct. And I think Pam Rivers is going to join me online as well. But the first big change is we actually changed the name of it. So we can speak of routine safety COVID checks now, which are formerly pool testing. So that's the first big change. Things that didn't change, this is just another mitigation strategy that we've used and will continue to use. We continue to stress that if you're not feeling well, if you're symptomatic, and we know we're coming into the cold and flu season here very quickly, should stay home. Mandated mask wearing, obviously, physical distancing when possible, the hand washing and the sanitizing continues, the introduction of fresh air into the classrooms, the use of our HEPA filters, all of these things that we did last year. And then ultimately also, and we got pretty good at it last year as well, the pool testing or the routine safety checks that we'll be calling it this year.
Excuse me, Craig?
Yep, Jim?
Can parents have their students opt out of the safety checks?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and I'll go through that, but we encourage folks to be involved with this because it gives us great data about what's happening in the school. If a family decides not to participate, that's fine. It's not mandatory. And it's the same as it was last year for those students and/or staff who had been recently tested positive in the last 90 days. We would exclude them from the testing. But it's not mandatory.
I had a doctor call me today.
Yes.
That asked me, if a child is sent home, or the parent, let's say, is tested positive, the child has to quarantine at home, is there any instruction going on? He was talking about a different city, and I said, are you talking Fitchburg? He said, no.
Right.
But there is no provision for that, he said, in this city, wherever he was talking about, I don't know.
Yeah, at this time, there is no remote
There is
option.
no, because if you got a quarantine, you're there for what, is it 12 days or something?
I think it's 10, right?
10 days.
10 days.
There's no,
There is no remote. I would think after what we learned last year, we would be in better state to provide
I said
that
I'd check it out, I didn't know
online
that.
work.
Yeah.
There isn't.
The states that had made no provision for that either?
The only option that the state gave us was for us to apply for a remote school. So that means if we were going to apply for a remote school, we would have to identify staff, we would need a principal, it would be adding a 9th school to Fitchburg Public Schools, but it would be all remote.
And it's just for people who are positive?
No, it could be for anybody. Anybody. So if you wanted to have a remote we would have a remote option and kids could enroll in this school and they would attend it.
Wow,
Yep.
that's weird. Okay,
That was the only option that we were able
Yeah.
to, that we were given this year.
but that's a gap, obviously. Has no one thought of that, or they just don't, what do these kids do?
Right now, we are actually going
Schools
to
have thought about it.
we're going to provide some guidelines, but it's going to be like when you were sick, when I was a kid, there was hard copies of work that were sent home
Yeah.
for you to do.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
But you're right, because it's lengthy, because, and it's, I don't know, I guess we'll find out
Yeah.
how extensive it is, but it's worrisome for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And again, going back to why, we feel that we would like for as many people to participate in the safety checks program as possible, just to build confidence amongst the schools, the staff, the families, that they know that we're keeping an eye on things. Again, it's another level of mitigation. It will help us identify those who may be asymptomatic. And it does provide assessments. So the testing program, aside from the COVID checks, we do continue to provide BinaxNOW testing for those students who come in who are symptomatic. So we can assist families with that as well. We're not doing it, obviously, for folks outside of the school, but if somebody was to come into school, I'm not feeling well, then with consent, that child and/or staff member can be tested. And again, it provides equitable access to testing at no cost to our school-based folks. It does provide us a response to any potential community spread or clusters that we may identify. And it helps support all of our efforts to make sure that we're providing a safe and healthy environment for our students and our staff to return to in-person learning. So much like last year, we will coordinate this, although the building administrative team have kind of complete oversight. We will have building-based coordinators that will be assisting with the whole process. We have a new company this year, and this is what I think has slowed us down a little bit. I think if we continued with the Concentric by Ginkgo as we did last year, that team was ready to roll. The state went with this CIC, the Cambridge Innovation folks, and it's been a little bit of a learning curve here at the beginning. There's some new platforms, some new software. The software that we're using is called Crush the Curve. Once you get into it and access it, it'll be very similar for our testers, our nurses, our school-based folks to actually enter in the data and then get responses or get results through this new network. And again, the school-based nursing, they will continue to be integral part of this whole process. It's been, a wonderful working relationship. It's been a great team effort. It's been going on now since last year, and I think that we're going to continue once we get this new program ramped up and we'll be off and running. So we have the CIC Health who we're working directly with, and then they appointed this TrueCare 24 as a support team to us. So we'll work with them and their local representatives to get the testing program up and running. And as I said, the school-based teams are the coordinator, obviously the admin team, but myself, Pamela Rivers, and Rohan Damach are helping to launch this at the district level. So changes for this year, as I said, we're working with a new company with CIC Health and Crush the Curve. Last year, we were testing half the kids once, and then the second half another day in the week. Our goal this year is to do everybody 100% of the students on Mondays, so there will be less disruption. There's a new protocol, double swabbing, so actually each child and or staff will swab once, which will go into the pool, and then they'll swab a second swab that will actually go into a smaller test tube with their name on it. That way, if we have a positive pool, the lab would automatically just go back. So last year, we were informed that you have a positive pool, and then we would have to bring the students or staff down and have them tested again. This way, they're going to give us not only have a positive pool, but this is the individual in that pool. So it'll be able to us to respond much more rapidly. So there's a little bit more work at the beginning because they are doing double swabs. They think it's going to take a little bit of practice. But I think ultimately it's going to work much, much better for us. And then the test and stay procedure, which is a little different too. So if there is somebody who would be potentially a close contact, we can actually test them. They can be, if they're negative, they can stay in school, and we would continue to test them over the course of the week to make sure that there are no testing for symptoms. If somebody was symptomatic, then obviously they would stay home right at that point. But we could continue to bring students in or staff in, test them in the morning. If they're negative, they can stay for the day. And then I provided this link here, and this is to the CIC Health website. And this is very valuable because it provides both things. So you'll see on this little picture that I posted, it is for the consent, so a parent can go right in and sign the consent for their child, and an adult can go in and put in a consent for themselves. You can hit the Learn More button, and it'll describe the entire testing program and give you more information about it. The nice thing that I like about this is that up in this upper right-hand corner, with a simple click of the button, you can translate all of these documents in the website into the language of your choice. So we provide hard copies in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. The ability for this information to be translated for all of our families is a little bit more accessible here online. So we are prompting the principals have sent out this link numerous times to families, and we're asking them, if at all possible, if they have access to it, to consent through the portal, and if not, we certainly will supply it. I know that each building was putting their letterhead on it. We think it's important to have that intimate touch coming from the school and the principal for the documents that they provided to us that were somewhat generic, but has all of the same information on it. And that's just a quick overview. I don't know if you have, Jim.
Quick question on one of the previous slides, we talked about double swabbing, where everybody's first swab goes into one container, then the individuals. If that pool comes back negative, then the individual swabs are destroyed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, they wouldn't even, it's literally in a second bag, so they wouldn't even go into them unless there was a positive
okay.
pull, which is generating a lot of work, but I think, again, I think that having that option is going to be telltale if we get positive results, to be able to bring it right down to an individual staff member or student.
That's good. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Craig, do you want to just quickly go through the budget items here, or
Yeah,
do the donations?
Let me get to that screen.
Okay.
I get it right here. So we have one grant, actually, we have one donation. Let me start there. So we have a donation of 150 backpacks with an estimated value of $4,500, and that was through the City United Church, and that was provided to Luisa Fernandez, our family and community coordinator, and those supplies have been distributed over the course of the beginning of the school and starting school to get kids off and running. We have one grant to submit. This is the sizable ESSER 3 that we've been talking about. That's $16.6 million. The deadline for submitting that is October 4th, so we're well on our way of strategizing to spend that money. We have several other grants to accept. The early literacy grant for $54,500, and that's to Rheingold Elementary School, intended to increase teacher practice and student outcomes in early reading through deep professional development. We have our capital skills grant of $71,762, and that is to Fitchburg High School, and that's a state-funded grant program focused on the advanced manufacturing that Principal Roach had described this evening. We have the Innovative Pathways Grant, and that's $17,300, and again, that's to Fitchburg High School, and that's opportunities to strengthen career education for high school students. We have a 21st Century $734,000 grant, and that is for all of our program district-wide. And then we have the ESSER 2, which we wrote earlier this summer for $7.4 million, and that is to help schools and to get kids back to school safely, to support our staff, curriculum needs, social emotional needs, and at least preliminarily, we're looking at a number of different facilities upgrades using the ESSER 2 as well as the ESSER 3 as it comes out in the coming year.
And then I guess I'll just add on in your package was the letter of intent for the solar power purchase agreement, PPA, for the Longstrode Middle School roof with Select Energy. This would be the third roof in Fitchburg Public Schools that we put photovoltaic panels on top of, with the roof being complete.
Tell them to be careful with that roof, huh?
They're going to be really careful. They're going to be really wicked careful
Nobody
with that
wearing
roof.
golf shoes or anything like that, you know what I mean?
Not even steel toe
No,
boots.
that's right, exactly.
They're wearing felt ballet slippers
Yes,
up there.
thank you.
I don't know, it's just
And this is just to get us into the state pipeline for the potential of having
Yeah.
that, so we've got a long ways to go, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the, well, this is for the solar power, is there?
Power purchase agreement.
Yeah, the PPA.
Yeah.
Is this the pipeline for that too, Craig? Or are you thinking the MSBA Longstrode project?
yeah, that's separate.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
But is this, with the LOI, commits to the project and allows them to do some more due diligence before they finally start?
Yep, this is just a preliminary stage. Yep.
And I guess, probably the thing, when we did the solar panels on Memorial and Rheingold now, probably several years ago, we really, no pun intended, I don't say struck gold, but it was a very favorable, probably the most favorable rate that we could have achieved. And because the gap between Unitil and what was being offered, it was too good of a deal to pass down. And, these programs can change annually. And we stayed in contact with Select, and they came back to us because the program had changed once again with what the Commonwealth of Mass is doing to try to encourage communities to either be green, and again, this would be the third solar array through the Power Options program, and with Select, who we've been
Right.
very
And the
satisfied.
exciting part for this particular program is that the school would literally be net zero, so that they can produce enough energy from the solar back into the grid that Long Shore would be running at zero. That's not our cost, but the fact that it would be at net zero is a wonderful,
That's great.
initiative.
And then two, I guess, one staffing and one bus pass.
So there's actually three positions there. So one is the approval of the groundskeeper, which is new. This is previously a HVAC position that we were unable to fill for several years, but the need for us keeping up our facilities outdoors, keeping up with the needs of the athletic department. This position would be at Fitchburg High School specifically, and would take care of the grounds at Fitchburg High and the athletic fields at Fitchburg High, which would allow the other position that we've had for years to then focus on the other schools in the rest of the district. And then there are two junior custodians, so it's three positions total. The two utility custodians will be to help us through this time of COVID, where we're dealing with shortages. We've adjusted our hours for our custodians. We're typically, our juniors were in from 2 to 10, but because they have to be in the building now earlier so that we're able to do the sanitizing and hitting the high-touch areas during the day, the buildings are closing at 6. So this will provide us with a little bit more flexibility, particularly during this COVID time. And currently, we have 2 seniors that will be retiring, or one has just retired, so this will also help backfill some of that shortages that we're anticipating.
Is this paid for by COVID money, those positions?
Those 2 positions.
We
will
make
be
that
correct.
case?
Yep, and
Good,
then
good.
the groundskeeper will be out of general, and those funds have
The
been
other two would be
there.
from, good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Jim has a question.
On the groundskeeper job description where it says, maintain the grounds and sports fields located at Fitchburg High School or as assigned, is the person in this position will also be responsible for Crocker Field?
Not Crocker Field, but the athletic fields at the high school. So the baseball field, the soccer field down below, as
Okay.
well as the rest of the grounds.
Okay. In the practice field at Amiot Field, that's a different person?
That position remains, yeah. We're not reducing anything, we're just adding to it.
Does he
Thank
do
you.
that too? Yeah.
Yep.
Craig, is this a posting through School Spring?
I'm sorry.
Is it being posted on School Spring?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Actually, the groundskeeper posting is kind of in final draft form, and we're just working with the union to make sure that we have all of our language correct. And then the utility posting after tonight, both of those positions will be posted, with your approval.
And this gets posted on the city website as well as the schools?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I'll include it in the Fitchburg Reveille also.
Thank you.
Situations wanted.
Bus passes?
Oh, bus passes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we had discussed it at Resource Sub, and there was a recommendation that came in that for this year, that we make bus passes are free for all students and families.
Right. That's a great idea, thank you. No charge. For the edification of the committee, it's approximately a reduction of about 30,000. It's not crazy money, but it sends out a positive message, I think, so I think that's good. Thank you.
It's action item, vote time, and then we do have executive session for the
Right.
purpose of negotiations, so.
I'd like to make a motion to bundle action items 21-93 through action item 21-98.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to bundle action items 21-93 up through and including 21-98. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to approve the bundle?
Motion made to approve the bundle, seconded as well. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. We are now, Ms. Greenlees, if you would take a roll to enter into executive session, please.
Yes, sir. Mayor Di Natale?
Yes?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Cragan?
Yes.
Mrs. LaBelle Pierce?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds? Yes. Mr. Horgan?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. We will exit incidentally only for the purposes of adjournment. All right?
Okay.
It is unanimous. We are now in executive session.